Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. All right, y'all, as we dive into this podcast, I want you to know I've split this podcast into two parts. As I was recording it, there was a lot more that I had to say than I had originally written in my outline and thought I was going to say. So just know this is going to be coming out in two parts. The first part, you are going to hear the 5 questions to walk you through how to make a spending decision. And then the second part is going to be a lot more examples, and I'm going to walk you through specifically annual fees for credit cards, my decision around the Amex Platinum. So just know you're going to get those 2 flavors, part 1 and part 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Happy 2026. This is my 3rd time trying to start this podcast episode recording today. This is the first one I'm recording since the new year began. The one that came out last week, it was recorded before the holiday break. So we are now fully in 2026. I'm here in 2026 with you. Welcome. The reason that I've had to start this over a couple of times is because I've opened it with kind of talking about the state of the world. There's a lot of stuff that's happening right now, and I was trying to talk through that, and then it just kept leading me down tangents that are not the purpose of this podcast episode, okay? So I really want to dive straight into the questions, the 5 questions here of how to make a spending decision, right? How to decide when you want to part with your dollars and why, and make sure that feels good to you. We're starting off right away, and I'm not tangenting. I'm probably going to do another podcast episode in a couple of weeks answering some questions that I've been getting about, like, what do I do with my money, re the state of the world, with AI, with tech, with cryptocurrency, with the stuff that's coming down the pipeline. This is me very consciously trying to not go into tangents right now. What I'm going to say is there will be a podcast episode that comes out talking through some of those things. I want to hear your questions, re state of the world and money. So I can make sure I answer all of those. So like things about the stock market, something you heard on TikTok, what you've heard a finance influencers say, what you heard your uncle say over the holidays about something in the financial realm. You specifically, like as a creative with AI, is there something different we need to do with our money? Like, I have some of the things that I know I'm going to touch on in this episode, but I want to hear specifically your questions or the things that you have heard so I can answer all of those things. We can like take a breath and dispel some fear. Make sure you feel really confident on how you're going to move forward with your financial decisions. So what I want you to do is, if you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment on this video, letting me know what you've heard or what question you have or what you want me to touch on in that next podcast episode. You can also send me a DM on Instagram saying you listened to this episode and here's the question you want me to answer when I do that episode. And you can just like title it RE, the state of the world, right? That's what you can title it. You can also send us an email at support@notstarvingartist.com and submit your question or the thing you've heard. Or if you want to like send me a TikTok video you saw or an Instagram reel you saw and I can touch on that, please do. That's going to come in another episode. This episode specifically, we are talking about the 5 questions to help you decide if something is worth spending money on. And why we're talking about this now is because I had to walk myself through these 5 questions and this decision-making process with my Amex Platinum credit card renewal happening in November, December. And they were also upping the annual fee for the card moving forward into the next year. So I had to walk myself through this decision and I ended up deciding to cancel it. So I'm going to walk you through that, but then I'm also going to walk you through some other examples, how to use these questions for anything, whether it's like a physical item that you want to buy, a vacation or a trip you want to take, a coaching, acting coaching, money coaching, buying Cashed Up Creatives, some other kind of investment for your business, a marketing package, those sorts of things. headshots if you need new headshots, a credit card with an annual fee, a membership, software, your website subscription, a gift for someone else, giving money to your family, right? When they ask for it. Anything where you're parting with your dollars, these questions can help you make a decision that feels good to you, okay? Now is not the time to be on autopilot with our money. Everything is on the table right now. I want you to put everything you spend money on back on the table. Things have gotten too expensive for us to not be thinking about how we are parting with our dollars. And I've talked about this in a previous podcast episode. I always hesitate to use the word expensive because what the word expensive signals to us is I can't afford it. And I'm going to talk about that phrase later in this episode and how that's a really detrimental phrase to our money mindset and to feeling abundant with money. The reason I use it now is because there is a lot of shit that has gotten expensive in the sense of prices have inflated way beyond their actual value. And that is because of the capitalistic hellscape we're living in right now, okay? Not everything has gotten expensive, but a lot of things have inflated to the point where it is no longer valuable. Even though it used to be valuable to us at a certain price point, shit's gone up, all right? And we've seen it. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't buy things that have gotten more, that now cost more money. But the reason that it is so much more important that we don't go on autopilot with our money is because there is less wiggle room to absorb higher costs in every single category and every single thing we spend money on because of inflation and the greed that we see in our country. Okay, Brooke, let's not go on tangents in this episode. We're gonna flag things as another episode. Okay, so 5 questions you can ask yourself. I'm gonna just go through the 5 questions quickly, and then I'm gonna piece them out. I'm gonna walk you through an example, and we're gonna discuss them one by one. First question, do I have the money in my bank account? Can I see it there that I could spend it? Okay. Number 2, what am I hoping it will give me? Number 3, can I achieve these things elsewhere for free or lower cost? 4, what else would I want to use this money for and why? And will I actually use that money for that other thing? Number 5, what am I afraid will happen if I pass on this? Or what am I afraid will happen if I do spend money on this? Now, these questions are going to be good for 2 ends of the spectrum when it comes to spending. Someone who, if you identify as an overspender, you love spending money, you will part with it easily, and you know this about yourself, these questions are going to be good for you to make more intentional purchases, okay? If you are on the other end of the spectrum, an oversaver, my money hoarders, my what if people, these questions are also going to help you because it's going to help you spend money on things that are actually worth it rather than holding on to the money out of fear. Okay, so it can be done for those 2 extremes and anything in between. Now, after you answer these questions, you are allowed to decide whatever you want, re the actual thing you're going to spend money on. Okay, the point is that you answer these questions. Even if all of the answers to these questions point you to spending money on it, you could make the decision, no, I don't want to, and vice versa. Okay. The point of these questions is that you slow down long enough to actually think through the decision. It's building the muscle of intentional spending. You could answer all of these questions and all of them tell you, nope, probably not a good way to spend your money. And you can clock that and be like, you know what? All of these things tell me I shouldn't spend money on it. But you know what? I still want to. And you know what? I'm gonna. Right? And that is so much healthier, such a healthier way to spend your money than going into the fuck it blackout, which is where like you're caught up in your brain and you're like trying to debate yourself and you're trying to like girl math your way into like proving that you should and that it's a good decision. And then you get too confused because then the other side of your brain is like, no, but it's not responsible, and you say, fuck it. You kind of black out, you go somewhere else, you disassociate, you press purchase, you press spend, you press order now. And then the thing comes and then you're like shrouded in guilt or shame, or like then you don't want to feel the guilt and shame, so then you black out further, right? And then you're just in this place of ignorance or willful naivete, right? And you're like, I'll just clean it up later. I'm just not going to think about it, right? And then you've put yourself in a weird avoidant shame cycle around your money. I'd rather you clock like, hey, I don't love the reasons why I want to spend money on this, but you know what? I still fucking want to. And I'm going to choose to. And I know exactly how it's going to affect my bank accounts in the future when I look at them a month down the line at my next CEO party, and I sign off on it. I ship it, right? That is the way I want you making spending decisions. Now, a lot of the time, the answers and what they point you towards is the decision you're going to make, right? But that doesn't always have to be the case. And what I also want to say here too is that there's no inherent good ways to spend money or bad ways to spend money, right? Someone spending money on a certain vacation might feel so dumb to someone else and like, why on earth would you do that when you have like these other things that you should be considering, whatever. For one person, that could be a horrible financial decision. For the other person, it could be like, you know what? Here's all of the intrinsic reasons why it's important to me. Here's the reason I'm going on the trip that I know is going to fuel me, that's actually going to lead to like possibly another job. And so I am going to spend the money on this because of this. And I know exactly how it's going to affect my savings account. But guess what? I have this coming down the pipeline to refill the, like, you could argue both sides. Anyone could argue both sides on any spending decision, okay? Now, my brain just was like, and there's always exceptions to that rule. The first thing that came to my mind is gambling, right? Like I would and this is just my opinion. I don't think there's any reason why anyone should ever gamble money ever. Ever. And it's just because I'm seeing a lot of the FanDuel and Sportsbook betting ads, which somehow became legal recently, and God, it's so hard to see and watch. So like there's exceptions to the rule. I would say, in my opinion, I don't think there's any reason anyone should part with dollars for gambling. That's all I have to say. Now, the exception to that would be like, okay, if it is going to foster a social, like you're going on a trip with people and gambling is a part of it and you give yourself a certain amount of money, but it's like you're basically paying for the experience to spend time with these people while you're gambling. Like, okay, then there's an exception to that rule. Moral of the story: there is no good or bad way to spend money. Did you see how my brain could even like debate both sides of that, right? So why you're going to ask yourself these questions is because you need to help like kind of quiet and zero in that mental chatter, because our brains love to try and figure out an answer. They love to try and figure out a solution. But without some like structure around trying to figure out that solution, both sides of the debate team are going to be yelling at each other with no structure, and it's going to overwhelm you and push you into a fuck it blackout. Okay? So we are slowing down and intentionally answering these 5 questions to help calm that chatter and help you make a decision that feels really good to you, okay? Now, a relationship with money requires this kind of slowness and intentionality, okay? You must give yourself time to answer these questions. If you are in a space in your life where taking the time to answer 5 questions about a spending decision feels like too much time and feels too overwhelming, we need to take a look at your lifestyle, okay? We need to take a look at your value system. We need to take a look at what's going on in your brain that's saying, I don't have time, I can't, I just need to make a decision, and the rush energy. Now, it's not your fault. Our society is built to make us feel that way. Yes. What we are told we should have accomplished by a certain age or by a certain amount of time makes us feel that way. Conditioning makes us feel that way. So it's not your fault, but we're going to clock it. And I want you to know that if this feels too overwhelming, then we need to create a little more space in your day-to-day to be able to slow down enough to consciously cultivate a relationship with money. Now, this isn't hours a day. This is asking yourself these 5 questions, and each question might take a minute to answer. 1 minute to answer in your journal or even in your head. Okay? 5 minutes to make a decision about parting with a large chunk of money, if that's what you're doing, that's worth it. All right? That's worth it. That will always be worth it. Because guess what? You having to clean up overspending in your bank accounts a month from now at your next CEO party is going to take a lot more time than spending 5 minutes to make an intentional decision now. And already clock what it's going to do to your bank accounts now so that you're prepared for it when your CEO party happens next month, right? Or it's worth it to take the 5 minutes to make a decision to spend on something so that you are not constantly in this fear of like, what if, SOS, and like you're stalling yourself and your lifestyle. You're postponing your joy. You're postponing your career. You're postponing your art because you're so afraid to part with your dollars, right? That's actually wasting more time than if you spent the 5 minutes right now to ask yourself these questions to decide if you're going to spend money on something, okay? Now, why we're asking these 5 questions, and I'm going to walk you through some examples in a minute, but why it's these 5 questions versus the question that a lot of us ask when we're trying to decide if we should buy something is the question, can I afford it? It's because can I afford it is going to lead you down the wrong path of how to make this decision, okay? Can I afford it is always the wrong question because I'm going to be honest, you can always afford something. There's always going to be a way for you to buy a thing that you want, for you to spend money on a thing that you want, right? You are always going to be able to girl math your way into affording something, right? Or if you're an oversaver and you're terrified to spend money, you can always convince yourself that you can't afford something because all of it has to go into your savings. So can I afford it is a very subjective question that doesn't actually get down to your values, what the thing is actually going to be giving you, and like, should you actually put money towards it? Can I afford it tells you nothing, okay? You can always convince yourself you do or don't have the money, okay? That is not a subjective question. The other thing here is a lot of times when you're asking yourself, can I afford it? You're not looking at the full picture of your money. And this is why the money flow method is the cash flow system that I teach you to set up inside of Cashed Up Creatives, which is my online course. The money flow method is a bank account system that shows you the full picture of your money. This is the system that allows you to not budget, to not have to track your spending, while also being able to see very clearly how much do you have to spend for this month. And how are you going to be able to put money towards savings in future you while also spending on current you? And those not be at a disconnect, right? Those not be at war with each other. That's what the money flow is helping you to do. Now, the reason I set up the money flow method the way I did for you all to be able to move your money through is because it's going to show you the full picture of your dollars. So that when you're asking yourself, do I have the money to spend on this thing? You're not seeing just one big chunk of money in your checking account. Oh, this thing costs $300 and I have $1,200 in my checking account. I have the money to spend on it, right? What it's doing is it's showing you, I'm 3 months ahead on bills in my savings account. I see how much money I have left to spend on fun shit for the month because my money to pay my rent and all my bills this month is already in a separate account. So I can look at the number to see how much I have left, or I can look at my savings buckets and I can see that I have X amount in my vacation fund that I can spend on that trip. Or I'm trying to get 3 months ahead on bills and I don't really have other money in my savings buckets. So even though I have X amount in my checking account, I'm seeing future me actually needs some funding. So maybe I don't want to put that money towards that. Like, you're seeing the full picture. And what I want you to clock about this is it's just you using your eyeballs looking at your one banking screen, okay? This is not mental math. This is not cross-checking with a spreadsheet on like how much you said you were going to spend. All you have to do is pull up the bank account. You can literally see all of this on one screen because this is how I want you making spending decisions with the full picture of your money. So can I afford it without being able to see your money in the money flow, without being able to see the full picture of your finances is always going to lead you to an answer that isn't actually grounded in real math, in your real finances, okay? Here's the other thing about can I afford it? As your question, is that what you've done when you put that question as the forefront is if you decide to not buy the thing, what the question, can I afford it, has made that decision mean is I can't afford it, right? So I can afford it equals buy it. I can't afford it equals don't buy it. Okay. So if we're talking about like abundance energy and scarcity energy, you've now created this binary of like, okay, I can't afford it, I don't buy it, scarcity, or I can't afford it, I buy it, abundant energy. But those can be in different orders. So for example, you decide you don't want to buy something. So that means your brain tells you I can't afford it equals, oh, now I'm in scarcity. Now I'm not feeling abundant. I want to feel abundant. So that means I'm going to buy the thing so I can tell myself I can afford it so that I can feel abundant, right? You have to give yourself another way to navigate buying and not buying something, right? You cannot buy something and be in abundant energy. But that means it can't come from the question, can I afford it? Because that's the wrong question. It's, do I want to spend money on this? I don't know. Let me ask myself these 5 other questions, right? It has nothing to do with, can I afford it or not? Do I have the money in the bank or not? It's, does this feel good to me based on all of these factors? The other helpful thing you can add on to this here is, I'm choosing not to spend money on this right now. Adding in that right now gives our brain an easy in to not feeling like we're making this like sweeping statement of like, this is who I am now. And this is, I'll never be able to have this again. Like our brain loves to jump to the absolutes. So when you add in right now to whatever decision you're going to make, that's going to be really helpful for you. Cause like the reason I have found that a lot of people avoid making financial changes or financial decisions is because you think it has to be for good, which makes you like reject it or throw a tantrum. Or you think this is gonna like mean something about you and that you have to like now be the person who makes these kinds of decisions forever and ever, amen. Like instead of just making it about this one thing, this one time, do you want to spend money on it or not? You've made it mean like a bunch of other things of like, from now on, I'm never going to spend money on this. Or from now on, I'm always going to spend money on this. Or me choosing to spend money on this now or not spend money on this now means now I'm this type of person or I'm not this type of person. Like, my God, that's a heavy, weighty decision. All right. So let's pull it back. Let's pull it back. I'm going to give you an example here too. I've had to do this with drinking. If you've been listening to the podcast like every week now, you've heard me talk about how this past year I've pulled back on my drinking. Now, this was just like a gut pull at the beginning of 2025 that I was feeling into. But what I had to do for myself is thinking about like, I'm going to be sober and like downloading one of those apps to like see how many days I could be sober for, like cut out alcohol for. That freaked me out. Like immediately my brain was like, no, we're not doing that. Right? Because that meant that like I am now a sober person. And that was like a really scary identity. Or like I couldn't imagine, like I knew I had 3 weddings that year. And I was like, I don't want to be sober for these 3 weddings. But there was still a part of me that was like, I want to cut way back on my drinking. So I had to apply these same principles of like, what if I just took it moment by moment, experience by experience, drink by drink? Do I want this or do I not? Does this feel good to me or does this not? Based on each situation, rather than making a sweeping identity change or a sweeping rule for myself that I had to follow moving forward. And what happened was I was able to cut way down on drinking this year. So I chose just a certain handful of events or experiences that I was like, you know what? Drinking is going to really enhance this experience. Or like, I just really want to. Not even that it would enhance the experience, but like, I'm going to be at a wedding over the holidays with all of my college friends. And I know we're going to get really drunk. And that sounds really fucking fun. Like, I'm going to do that. Right? But like, I'm not going to drink over Christmas. I'm not going to drink at one of the earlier weddings that I have this year. Instead of going out for happy hours when I want to catch up and meet up with friends, like, can we go and get food? Can I invite them over to my apartment? Can we go for a walk? Can we do an activity? Like, there were other things, and I'm not going to go into a whole thing about drinking, but I'm using this as an example of like, what we don't love about that kind of dynamic is our brains doesn't have the like hit of like, I've made this change. I've done this thing. I'm able to like put a label on it and put a bow on it, right? So like, I can't talk about sobriety because I'm not sober, right? There's no title or label or like achievement that I can put on to what I've done this year. And yet, my drinking is down by like 75% and it feels so fucking good. And do I know that it's 75%? No, but I just feel it in my body that it's like way less than it was. But it's not like a clean, nice achievement stamp, right? So a lot of times with our money, we do this. We want to make like a sweeping change or a sweeping identity shift. And we want to be able to say like, I paid off my debt in X amount of months. I only eat takeout once a week. I am the kind of person that now flies first class forever and always, amen, right? And I only do that because I've reached the level where like I can do that. So it's giving ourselves that stamp. It's giving ourselves that hit. It's making a decision about who we are rather than taking each decision and each moment for what it is and making the decision that feels really good about that thing in that place and time. And yes, that's going to take more mental energy. But it's going to mean you're in more alignment with your finances and also in your lifestyle. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.